Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super Fancify. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Motherland Fort Salem. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So let's catch up with our crew in the session. As they continue to be hunted by the Marshals, they have to ultimately split up. Scylla and Nicta stay together while Tally, Adil, and Abigail go look for Kaleda. Interestingly enough, and do correct me in the comments down below, I might have to look into it later myself, but it's the actor who plays like the main marshal, the dude who kind of talks the most throughout the episode. I'm like, isn't that the guy from Twin Peaks? I can't remember. It's been a while, so I don't remember. But what's his character's name? Hulk. He was one of the deputies in Twin Peaks, if I remember correctly. Because I know because in The Return he had white hair, so it looks like it's the same actor, but I'm not 100% sure. If it was, I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's been like 5 years since the Twin Peaks to Return, and it's been even longer since I've seen Twin Peaks, so like I don't remember if that's the same actor or not. It kind of looks like it could be him, but I could be mistaken. Either way, that whole Marshall thing I found so fascinating, because no matter what they did, they couldn't hide from. I even love like Necta's like, oh, here's some faces over here, let's get them, but Scylla was not okay with that. But it's like, she's not into the whole like killing civilians thing. It's like, oh, Rael's gotten to you. It's like, well, it's kind of her own guilty conscience. Well, a combination of Rael plus her own guilty conscience, because last season a lot of that like flew back on her and she regretted a lot of the choices she made. Once again, like the most terroristic thing she did was the mall situation, and it weighs the heaviest on her. So she's tried, ever since last season, she's really done a lot to try and redeem herself and be a better person for Rael, but also for herself. So, but for Nicta, it's like, right, what we do is like, oh, you're growing soft. This is a time of war. Whatever sacrifices have to be made to keep us alive, so we're alive to fight against the Camarilla. Who cares what we have to do? But it doesn't matter, because they can't stay hidden from the Marshals, because he immediately saw through them changing their faces. They managed to escape, but he still tracks them down later on. It's like, how is he following us? The Marshals can track your vocals, like basically you basically and it doesn't even matter just their work, them talking will lead like residual like trail for them to follow. It's like, that's fascinating. That's a deadly enemy to ever go up against, ever find yourself on the opposite side of. That's wild. Luckily all they had to do was like use the birds to kind of project their voices to lead them astray. But Scylla's trying to use a dead bird, to try and contact Rael, but Nicta gets in the way, because Nicta's saying like, right, she's made you weak, but Scylla's like, no, Rael's the only reason why I'm alive. Because the thing is, Nicta sees as like connections as weakness, because she, it's like, right, everything that went down between her and Sarah, so it's like, right, this is someone she cared about who, it's like everything went down between them, right? So I think that was probably the last time she really cared about someone. And then anyone else, it's just like, right, it's necessary sacrifices for the greater good. So I think she kind of detached herself from everyone. She doesn't get close to anyone. She's lived a life of solitude. And so when she sees what Scylla's doing, like caring so much about Rael, is like, yeah, weakness will be your undoing. Like, don't love someone, because it'll just kind of leave you vulnerable, so... Because Scylla's not the same person she was when she joined the Spree. She's kind of grown and changed so much. But Nicta, I think for her, it's like, this is all she has, so she's not willing to let go. It's already like she's burned too many bridges. She's already kind of darkened her heart. And I think for her, it's like, there's no room to let anyone else in. She's got a connection with Tally, but I think it's because she sees so much of herself in Tally, but that's kind of where it ends. Like, whether like they have a deeper connection or not, we'll see if that kind of like fosters more later in the season or not. But for now, it just seems like everyone's just kind of a means to an end. She's just preparing Tally with just her capabilities, because it's like, yeah, you'll be useful in the long run for the battle, but other than that, feelings and all this love is just all that will get you betrayed or killed. So But ultimately, they go toe to toe. But before that battle could get decided, the Marshal shows up and locks them down. So at the same time, you had Tally using her power of sight to lead Adil and Abigail to the bar, and it's cause the moment she saw Khalida and everything, you're like, wait, the bar, her and Abigail. It's like, oh, take your medicine. You're like, what's going on here? So they go to the bar, and because at first it was like, okay, who are they going to see? Is it going to be a familiar face? Did not expect it to be Sarah, and it does seem like it is actually Sarah. So it kind of gets rid of my theories before of like, oh, I thought like the camera. Well, I figured not my camera, the mycelium it's basically the same thing as Raelle, except Raelle wasn't dead. Wait, didn't she? Well, she was borderline dead at the end of season 1, wasn't she? I'm trying to remember, because she got heavily wounded. I think it was, or was it Abby? I don't remember now. I think she got heavily wounded. I think she was on the verge of death when it happened. So I think it might be even more common, but she has had a lot more contact with the mycelium, because like Raelle had only got like a small portion of it. Like it really latched on to Sarah, so it is a little bit of a different circumstance. So, and I love that, like, because it didn't even cross my mind until Abigail said something. She was like, oh, that's new. The moment Alder started eating, I was like, what? I was like, oh, right. I was like, right, she doesn't eat. I forgot about that. She doesn't eat or drink. Her, the biddy were, her substance, so she never had to, like, eat or drink or anything. It was just like, that was just how she survived. And so I was like, oh man, I didn't even think about that. I was like, oh wow, that's a big pile of nachos. Because it's like, you watch enough anime, you're like, oh yeah, that's like a main character thing. I'm like, where I gotta eat a whole bunch. I figured it like had to do more so with the mycelium, but it's like, well, because it's also like she hasn't eaten in like over 300 years, potentially, because of like the whole biddy situation. I was like, that's so fascinating. I was like, oh, I thought that was such a neat little detail. I mean, it's probably a combination of the two, but that was such a neat little detail. Like, I was like, I didn't even register that until Abigail said, oh, that's new. I was like, yeah, it's super weird. It's super weird seeing her eat something. But nevertheless, as they're like at the bar or whatever, there's a song that gets played, and immediately you notice that the only two people not affected by it are Khalida and Sarah. And it's like, oh, and the moment that happened and they were looking at each other, I was like, pieces to the original song. This person is singing that. But it turns out this person isn't a descendant of that. They basically, well, her name's, was it Ellen, the singer? Like, they end up checking her trailer. She has a whole bunch of stolen songs, with literal, very Ursula vibes, kind of stealing someone's voices. Like, yeah, that was her thing, and she kind of utilized it. And the particular song she was playing, the seeds she was using were the ones connected to one of the bloodlines that, one of the 6 daughters that went their separate ways, and each took a piece of the first song. So I was like, oh, that's fascinating. And so we find out, like, Khalida ends up having one of them. She's kind of, like, safeguarding it. And Sarah has another. So I'm like, okay, so that's... Now with this, there are 3 pieces in play of the first song. But then I was also wondering, like, you jumping around a little bit. Hurst, the person he was taking their vocal cords from, I'm like, do you think that person was a descendant? So does Hurst have one of the pieces to the first song as well? So that might actually put 4 pieces at... So it's either half to 3/4 of the... no, it's the wrong math. 2/3. Yeah, that's it. So either half to 2/3 of the original first song were in play. But I think that'd be interesting because, like, he specifically chose that particular subject. I mean, obviously, like, different families and different people have different songs and very unique seeds, but I think it'd be, because we know that Camarilla are after the first song as well, so they might have a piece to it, or maybe more. Like, the fact is that Hurst later on was like, okay, bring in this particular subject to kind of put them to work, so I'm assuming that's what that might be. So, like I said, I think at the very least, half, at most, maybe 2/3 of it is kind of out there. So there might be only 2 missing pieces to this. We'll have to wait and see. But I thought what's interesting too is Sarah, how bad, kind of her condition kind of looks bad. Like she later on kind of like grabs her stomach like she's in pain. So because she's still left in the dark, and when she found out about Raelle being taken, she was almost like, wait, what? Because she's like, the mycelium doesn't tell me everything. So that's the interesting thing. It decided to take Raelle, but why didn't it take Alder back then? But because I wonder if like her situation is a little different. Once again, I don't remember if Raelle like full on died. Or once again, was it her or Abigail? Like I can't remember how it went down in the season 1 finale, but like Sarah was straight up dead. So maybe her coming back with the mycelium's help is only temporary, or maybe it's even more temporary than maybe originally would have been, simply because the mycelium is wounded and that's kind of limiting everything, even her, because maybe she's starting to feel the effects because it still hasn't healed yet, even with Raelle. Maybe because Raelle's being a little resistant, so it can't heal. I'm curious what's going on there. Because the moment Tally goes back into the trailer, is like Sarah's gone, so like the mycelium might have called her back, or I don't know. Because she didn't take the song, she left it in Tally's hand, so I guess it's like, right, other things kind of take precedent. Because it's like, I guess Sarah has her mission about collecting the pieces to the song, so that kind of takes priority above anything else, so that's why maybe she's out and about, while Raelle, because Raelle has a fraction of it, has the connection, but Sarah is kind of the mycelium's right hand right now. She's kind of like the mycelium's avatar, to be fair. So I think that probably, once again, kind of makes her a little more important than Raelle. So it's like, while Sarah's doing all that, I'm going to need somebody to fall back and kind of help me recover. So it falls on Raelle because she's the only other person that has a connection to the mycelium. So we'll see. But ultimately, like, everyone ended up getting captured in this one, once again, except for Sarah. But later on, we see that Ellen, by the time she came back to her trailer, everything was smashed and her vocal cords were taken. So I'm assuming the Camarilla got to her. So they might have even more of the pieces now, because since they took her vocal cords, they don't have the original song, because obviously Tally has it, but her vocal cords have the song, so maybe that's all they need on their front, but still. I love all the shade that the Marshall ended up throwing towards, because you had Nick being like, oh, you gotta teach me that whistle of yours, and he's like, I know who you are. You think you're so special because you started a revolution? He's like, my dog is a better pack leader than you, and she can whistle too. And I was like, ooh, all the shade. And it's like, ugh. Because Nicta has been the one that's been so like kind of cocky and thinking she's hot shit, like she's top dog. But it's like, yeah, even she kind of found herself not, this is an enemy that even she couldn't defeat. So it's like, yeah, you have a trouble with just the Marshals. I mean, you could just tell, like, his comments super cut her deep. It just, like, I think it was a blow to her ego, so. But obviously, Scylla, Tally, and Abigail are severely, disheartened after finding out, like, right, she wasn't able to get in contact with Raelle, and they don't know what's going to happen on that front. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But tying this all in with the other side of things, I touched on it a little bit, but Hearst, boy came back and got quite the scolding, because it's like, oh, you failed, you watched your men get slaughtered again, basically you came back here kind of with your tail between your legs, and it's like, she's willing to give him another shot, and she's like, right, I gotta go check on Silver, like, I can only babysit one of you at a time, and Hearst, like, flipped out, because he's that cocky bastard that's always been in control, but he got severely blindsided by them, so that kind of threw everything in, and now it's like it threatens his position, because he got treated like a child that broke something, rather than he's not being respected. He was kind of belittled like that, and he didn't like that. So because Hearst always made it seem like he was top dog, but it's like, no, you answer to other people too. You're kind of a foot soldier. Yeah, you're higher up, but you're still nothing more than a foot soldier. You're the scientist. It's like, oh, you think you're so smart and everything, and then just a couple of sentences, she just like tore you down, and it's like, yeah, he got an ego check just like Nicta did. So, but like I said, I think that's what that whole deal is. I think he's basically taking that witch's vocal cords, which once again, I do believe she's probably connected to the daughters of the six daughters of the first song. And I think he's taking her vocal cords to start using himself. I mean, he's researched the enemy enough that it's like, right, it's time for me to jump into the den of the serpents and the den of the demons, and I know their ways enough that I can utilize this. So I was like, oh, that's going to be an issue, especially when Isadora and Anacostia came to the president and told her everything about Silver sacrificing his own daughter, then trailing it back to him. And the president wants to basically denounce him, veto the bill he kind of brought up last episode, but also, confront him, put it out there, let the country know about his betrayal and what he's done. Obviously, Petra didn't want that to be the thing, but the president's like, no, they want to fight. I'm ready for it. So they're trying to get locked and loaded and try and prepare because they know that the Camarilla won't sit back quietly. They knew that last episode, the moment they found out the president was on their side. It's like, right, she's going to be an issue. So the president, she actually meets with, was it Pauline or Paulina, who's the head honcho of the session. It's like, right, the U.S. and the session have a good enough relationship, and it's like, okay, those wanted people, they had something to do with that plant that exploded, so it's like, cool, fine, we'll capture them, and then we'll kind of hand them over to you, because her and the president her and Kelly have a good enough relationship, or a good enough rapport, that, so it's like, cool, the girls will kind of be brought in, and at least they could get their hands back on it, because that way they'll end up at Fort Salem, and rather than like the vice president getting his hand, because the only reason why she's aware of it and thinking it's them is because Silver was like, oh no, it's pretty much them, even though security footage doesn't really show that it is them. So yeah, but when the time comes, everyone's getting ready, waiting for the Camarilla to strike. But it's like, oh, at least, Home Dude was like, oh, at least we know the attack is coming. And was like, that probably won't matter in this case. Because it sounds like the moment M was trying to contact the others, it sounded like her voice was kind of like muddled. I don't know what that effect is. I think I like that effect. You know what it reminds me of? If you've ever seen the show Preacher, spoilers, when Jesse couldn't use, what was its name again? Genesis for a while. That's it, kind of like when he tried to use Genesis, there'd be kind of a distorted effect on his voice, because there's when he uses Genesis, there's an effect on his voice, kind of an echoey boom, and but there'd be like this statically distortion on top of it. It kind of sounded like that. I was like, oh yeah, I was like, I just what that immediately made me think of. But the Camarilla already made their way in. The camera crew was like, yet again, the camera crew, because it's like, right, you just found out about Penelope. What happened to her was because she got by the camera crew that her dad kind of let in and everything, right? But by the time M gets in there, the president's there. Next moment, we cut to outside the White House explodes. So then we see that Kelly's dead body. So the question then becomes, is the president actually dead, or did they disguise one of the bodies as the president? Like maybe it was a dead body, they disguised it as the president. Could it be could that actually be M disguising herself? Because that would that would wear off after death, right? Maybe. And I guess it depends on the work. Maybe it's not if you're casting it on yourself, sure, but maybe if you're casting it on a dead body, then maybe. They had some countermeasures in place, but they still got blindsided by all this. But I think this is a fake out. I think they're going to let people in the world think that the president's dead, but she's actually not. I think they were able to get her out in time. Maybe M sacrificed herself, and once again, her body's disguised to look like the president. To kind of, I don't know. I just don't think it's going to be that simple. I don't think it's like, oh, Kelly's dead. I think everyone's going to think so, but I think that's going to be the red herring. We'll see if that ends up being the case or not. Because the problem is with Silver being vice president, once again, he kind of slides right into place, and now they put him in a position where he's president and kind of, oh, that bill he was trying to push through, yeah, no one is standing in his way to veto it now, so that's going to be, because that was going to limit the rights of witches. basically like voting rights and stuff like that. It'll take them back a step in history wise. So it's going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us with all of this going forward, because at least the others are safe in the session to some extent. To be fair, that deal was made with Kelly, and now that she's quote unquote gone, we'll see how the leader of the session, how she responds to this. Like I said, it'll be interesting because before the explosion, we didn't see Anacostia or her boyfriend, Silver's right hand guy, so we don't know where they were before like shit really hit the fan. So we'll, like I said, have to wait and see what happened. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.